Good morning. Welcome to this week's edition of The Wrath of Ken. USA. Brought to you by the United States Navy, the sweetest smelling Navy in the world, now with berthing facilities on its aircraft carriers. In trying to decide on a topic for this week's edition of The Wrath of Ken, I realized that I didn't really have anything that I wanted to talk about specifically. I could have went the political route, but that's kind of boring. So I decided there was really nothing new I had. So with that in mind, I decided to take a look at the various comments that I've received as a result of my Wrath of Ken videos. These are comments made by people who are really interested in the hard-hitting commentary that I have in these videos and clearly have nothing else better to do with their lives. So let's go ahead and take a look at the comments that were generated as a result of my Gotta Go video, which talked about how I would like to go when I gotta go. So let's go ahead and take a look at this first one from Little Jerry from Lyme, Lexington. Or is that Hilltown or Percy or no, I'm not really sure. Pennsylvania is crazy when you figure out who lives where. Anyways, Jerry says that when I do have a funeral, to just make sure that I'm really dead. Or I can be just like Hillary. And let's see, Rosie from Indiana or Iowa or Nebraska or I don't know, I really don't know the Midwest all that much, made a comment, says, "You look way too young to be that old." Rosie, that was so sweet, and you really didn't have to say that, and the fact that you think I look way too young, you might need to invest in a pair of these. See, and next we have something from Sven, or Swen, or something like that, from Happy Valley, Pennsylvania. Happy Valley, of course, replaced the original Indian name for that particular area of Pennsylvania as being in the middle of nowhere. Anyways, Sven says, "How did the Viking funeral not make this list?" Well, with a name like Sven or Sven, I expect that's a fairly reasonable question. But if I want to keep these things at 3 to 5 minutes, I can't get into all the different kind of things, although Viking funerals are pretty cool. In fact, Rob from South Carolina, which is way down south in the land of cotton, ice cream cones there are not forgotten, sent me a Viking funeral of a pet hamster, which is pretty funny. I won't show it to you, but you can go to YouTube and select the Nordic funeral of my pet hamster. You'll like it. It's actually pretty funny. So let's carry on to the video before that, was The Wrath of Ken Goes Metric. Dan from Wallingford, Connecticut had this to say. Says this tastes like shit, but it's free. Have all you want. That makes sense to me. John from Topsham, Maine says, "What's the difference between American and Canadian cheese?" That's easy, John. Freedom. And Canadian cheese is made from moose. Tim posted a picture of cheese on a fat lady's butt. At least I hope it was just cheese. And Mark asked, "What next? Decimal coinage?" You put a lot of thought into that, Mark. It hurt my head, much more than the original thing, but you keep it up. And you're from Maine too, and you might want to make sure you keep track of where Canadian cheese comes from. Well, lucky for you, that's all the time we have for this week for the Wrath of Ken video. I've got more comments and more things to say, but I'm going to let it go now because we're approaching the 4 to 5 minute mark and I just want to stop this before you actually hurt yourself by falling asleep. Next time, I think I'll talk about where I got the idea for calling this the Wrath of Ken. Helpful tip, it has a lot to do with this guy. But Buzz, you're dead! And so are you, Tattoo. Yeah, now we're getting silly. So anyways, see you next week. But until then, don't forget to buy American. And don't get Canadian cheese, because moose.